Good evening, good morning. Welcome to the Energetic Brew monthly gathering. We are here to talk about Aries season and the eclipse energies that are happening here in March 2025. I am Zane, a rising Virgo, Sun Pisces, Capricorn moon, here to bring a practical view of the energies that are happening. Joining me tonight is none other than Rochelle. How are you tonight? Going on mute. Introduce yourself.
Absolutely. I'm like muted, unmuted. This is all so good. Yes, my name is Rochelle McFarlane, and I am a rising Pisces, a Capricorn sun, and a Libra moon here to help you flush away all that no longer belongs to you. So excited to be here on the evening of the eclipse. No matter where you're watching from, this information is going to be a part of you connecting to your whole body wellness and being able to help you align to the transits that are happening. So thanks, Zane. I'm so glad that you're here to co-host and to bring that practicality because as a rising Pisces, I need it.
Even for myself, sometimes I need the extra practicality as well, a little bit, and extra structure, as there's the flowiness that I get from my sun sign as I grow in age a little bit here and there. But tonight we are going to focus on the sun moving into Aries, the eclipse, as I was saying, and also a little bit later on, we will be talking about Neptune moving into Aries. And at the end of all of that, we will have a body practice that will be a body tool of some sort that Rochelle will bring us through to help balance us to these energies that are coming up in Aries season. And even though that they're happening in the Aries season, these body tools can help us move into these energies that are coming up, as that's why we do these classes gatherings here to few weeks in advance of the season. So then we can move into the season with ease instead of discomfort. And so, without further ado, the eclipse. What is the eclipse? The ecl the eclipse that we're having is a lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse is a powerful full moon that occurs when the Earth blocks the sun's light, from reaching the moon. This can signify completion, release, and tying up those loose ends that we might have. And it is happening in Virgo. And so Virgo represents perfectionism at times. It is the house of service, health, routines, and organization. These are pieces that can be coming up during this eclipse. So other details might be paying attention to detail, self-improvement, trying to find that level up, that perfective piece that we are striving for. And so this full moon is about freeing up the clutter on the physical and mental plane here. And so what is the eclipse energy is, again, yeah, that piece of transformation, releasing, but it also will bring up things that have been hidden underneath the surface. This particular lunar eclipse calls for letting go of old habits or unhealthy patterns that no longer serve us. And so this is an invitation to recognize your life and focus on holistic wellness. And the eclipse energy can happen just on the exact day, but it generally happens over a 6 month period. And it can show up as one major thing or a lot of the time it shows up as little tiny things that might go unnoticed. And sometimes it's those little things that build up that then create a bigger impact over that 6 month period. And so within this eclipse season is stepping into that practical self-care, creating practical rituals, and finding those loose ends and tying them up so then they're no longer dragging behind you. And reflect on how you balance work and personal life, as that's a part of your daily routine generally. Is are we too focused on work? Are we maybe not focused enough on it? And how can we improve our health routine? What are your thoughts here on the lunar eclipse that is happening as we record this, Rochelle?
I'm really excited that when we planned out our whole year of when we would be showing up and creating space for this community, it we just like pick the dates and go, okay, this is what's going to work for our schedule. And so the fact that when we put all of the dates together, yes, the eclipse were in my mind, but I never made it like the solid connection until last month that we were actually going to be meeting on the eve of the eclipse when it's affect and how it affects our chart. So I'm going to talk about our chart in just a moment as the rising Virgo and rising Pisces, but collectively, this is the health axis, as Zane was sharing about. And so the moon is about the water in our bodies, it's about the emotions in our water in our bodies, and how do they move and how are they being invoked, provoked, but also soothed and created. Because Virgo is the only sign in the zodiac system that is depicted by a woman. And so the moon is a lot to do with the feminine energy, regardless of how we're biologically born. There is this feminine energy that is within us that the moon rules, and that is the water, the blood in our body. And Virgo is about the truth seeker, the one that wants to know the truth. What is important to me? What is a part of who I am and what makes me me? Whereas Pisces rules this other part of us that is the hidden space that Zane was talking about. And that's where the sun currently is. So we have this masculine drive from the sun to help us to find how are we walking and who we are. Now, to blend in the eclipse energy that's happening, this is about us actually shedding out what is no longer ours so we can make room for what is. And this is a time for us to celebrate. There is some fear sometimes invoked around eclipses because it was like a phenomenon for a lot of our ancestors. But I'm really wanting to encourage the ability for us to choose what is for us right now collectively, to anchor further into the spiritual connections of who we are and what actually helps us to thrive, and giving ourselves permission to use this energy right now to reflect upon what has worked for us and celebrate that. And then to be able to just clip away what no longer does serve without shame or hindrance. And this potent time right now for us to be able to claim that and to be able to elevate without having to prove ourselves. And one part that I want to add, a detail of Virgo is like we might be seeking perfection, and that's okay. So, one of the things that I want to share for homework is, what does perfection mean? And is that a word that bothers you? Or is that a word that you can assimilate to and like help empower you? So, with that, I'll hand it back over to you. Actually, wait just a moment. There is a little channeled message from the Sabian symbols that I wanted to share. And when we look up the Sabian symbols, it rounds up the degree. So right now that eclipse is happening at 22 degrees of Pisces and Virgo. And when we look at the Sabian symbol, these were messages that were channeled back in the 30s by a gentleman. Forgive me, I've forgotten his name right now. But the important part is that what he was sharing about each degree of the zodiac were messages for us to feel invigorated by when we're looking at the lens of astrology and being able to bring it back into our lives. And the wonderful part is like, he's talking about a lion tamer and how are we creating this nuance of performing? How are we creating, putting ourselves into the center of attention, but really being able to use our emotions and our energies in a skillful way rather than being able to use them as manipulation or being able to feel like we are getting run over by our emotions. So the encouragement is to anchor in our faith and our courage, being able to think about professionalism. How are we training? How are we taking care of our adrenals? And that we can rehearse, but we can also give ourselves the permission to continuously treat life like a practice. The part from Pisces is being able to manifest and understand when our intuition gives us cues of false fronts, weird energies, the fakes, the delusion, and the imposters. So with these little tidbit pieces, I think what I'll do is I will put in our chat for our live audience how to go to the Sabian symbols, and then Zane, let's make a mental note. We can put that into the show notes part, being able to look them up. It's quite wild to see how these channeled messages can impact us and help us to just find clarity in what astrology is here to help us with. So, yeah, thanks for letting me add that.
Yeah. And so with that, yeah, the eclipse is, yeah, stepping into that piece of that health access. And yeah, we've kind of covered everything that we have written down for eclipses. What kind of will bring up a little bit of how this might be showing up for you personally on a personal level when we enter into the sun sign and the solar season, as we'll go over the house system a little bit in there. And so we'll have a little bit of a review or a refresher for some, otherwise a complete fresh learning for those that are here that are new to astrology as well. And with that, we will return to our live audience, as that is the bonus from showing up live here on our gatherings, is that you get to see in behind the scenes and to have a live back and forth conversation with us here live. So we will be just a snap of finger clap, transition clap here, and we will be back in a moment.
So
So
with potent full moon, there is going to be a need to clean things, release things, getting things out of our space. So maybe you feel like you're spring cleaning, even though it's not quite spring cleaning season. This moon might be giving you this activation of getting rid of the things that you don't need to have in your space, but also beautifying your space. So just notice any synchronicities when it comes to beautifying your space and giving yourself some space to honor yourself and what that might look like. And I know Zane is eager to talk about the sun moving into Aries. And so with that, I'll let you jump into that part.
so with Aries season, Aries, that is when Aries season is when the sun moves into Aries. The energy that Aries brings, it's the first sign of the zodiac and represents new beginnings, courage, being assertive, and just taking that leap forward. It is also symbolized by the ram. It is fire cardinal. And when the sun enters Aries, it generally is the spring equinox happening, a time of rebirth and that piece of getting ready to go into the garden for those that garden, those that are ready to work with their hands a little bit more in the dirt and being outside a little bit more, that are more on the preferred of warmer seasons. And the theme is, yeah, that piece of taking a fresh start, taking risks, setting bold intentions is what Aries is about. Aries is also about action, leadership, and independence. These can be also key themes that we can see during Aries season. And part of it, though, is with all of this energy of just wanting to jump, go forward, take action, we also have to be mindful of being impulsive and balancing that desire for action with patience and being able to sit, wait, and have patience for things to happen or possibly others to catch up and have that piece of be able to have teamwork. And so the tidbits of like astrology and the piece of Aries season here is embracing new challenges, but being aware of those possible burnouts from rushing too fast. Again, the patience coming up here again, and setting intentions that are courageous and driven by passion. Strategy and thoughtfulness is key here, as if there isn't the strategy or being thinking before we act, we might trip, we might fall, we might be walking on loose gravel as there's gravel on the side of the roads now. There's possible ice patches here and there that are coming up. And there's also the piece of when it comes to communication, especially with Mercury being in retrograde here, as we talked about our last gathering, is we could lose our cool when it comes to conversation and lose our head within that piece of conversation and communication. So taking time, slowing down, especially with the retrograde Mercury here that's coming up. We're in the shadows, so the energy of it is here. So slowing down, even though we may want to run as fast as we can, speak as fast as we can, taking a deep breath and slowing down will help us move into Aries season here and come out of it unburnt, unscathed. And so when the sun moves into a astrological sign and it changes seasons, it can affect a different spot in our astrology chart, our personal natal chart here. And so I was kind of mentioning this during the eclipse portion of how this eclipse might be affecting us personally, as it is affecting the health axis collectively. But on a personal level, it can be showing up differently. And when the sun moves into a new sign, it will also bring more energy to that house. And so the quick overview of the meaning of the houses are the first house is about the self and how you show up. The second house is money and resources. Third is communication. Fourth is home and family. Fifth is creativity and children. Sixth is health and daily routines. Seventh is relationships. Eighth is transformation and shared resources. Ninth is travel and education. 10th is career and goals. 11th is community and friends. And 12th is karma and endings. And so within that piece, we can feel those an increase of energy and wanting to maybe have more drive within Aries season here, depending on where it is in our houses or our house system. And with this eclipse, we might see those changing and changes coming up. depending on where Virgo and Pisces sits in our natal chart. And so there's that piece of, yeah, where is it showing up for you? Those here that are live, feel free to check your chart, check in of like, where's Aries? Where's Virgo and Pisces for this eclipse? And for me personally, this eclipse is happening in my first and seventh house. And so there's that piece of how it might show up. And for me personally, that is becoming more and more in my mind right now, showing up more on the camera, speaking more publicly, and that piece of showing up in my community and kind of losing that shy side of me. And so that's for me personally, if how this eclipse is kind of showing up for me, even though it's just happened today as we record this on March 13th, 2025. The energy will carry out for the next 6 months. And so it'll be interesting to see what it's like for me personally in the next 6 months. And for you, Rochelle, would you like to share where it's happening for you?
hmm This what makes it so juicy to be able to co-host with you because we look across the table of astrology with each other. So Zane's a rising Virgo, I'm a rising Pisces. This axis is 180 degrees from each other, meaning that we get to look through the lens of two different perspectives. Opposition can often be a mythical, meaning that we're going to clash heads. It's a possibility, but it's really just looking objectively from two different perspectives. So from my perspective, it's happening. The sun is lighting up my first house. This is about me right now starting a new year. And to be able to start a new year with an eclipse means I get to shed, also in a snake year, I get to shed all the things that I thought who I am, how I embody who I am in the physical body, but also it reflects over to house seven, which is the house of relationships. So house one is all about the sense of self and relationships. And so I get to shed the relationships that are really not serving me. I have been feeling this ecliptic energy and I'm watching the moon rise just as I'm speaking. So that gets me really excited about this alignment that this eclipse is going to offer. So depending on where this is in your house, like in your system of houses, it could look different. For Zane and I both, it's about self and relationships in self and vice versa, seeking the truth, removing what's been hidden in my subconscious as well when it comes to who I quote should be, but instead of like honoring who I am. And so I get to be more spilt water looking for the container. And I've been hosting and holding more space weekly in my local community, keeping it really private. And then about building the connections with other women. And it's been feeling so good. I don't know that I've felt as confident in myself, but also being able to not feel like I have to be so bold, but I actually get to whisper. And in those whispers, I get to feel my power. And that's what this eclipse has been helping me to feel into. So going into Aries season now, it's I'm getting really prepared to utilize that solar energy that much more. So if you have questions, you want to know more about where this is landing in your chart, book a reading with us. Come and feel into what it's like to work with us, be able to anchor into this eclipse energy. As Zane mentioned, this energy is here for us to access for the next 6 months. And then there's also some parts of when eclipses happen that even come into the next 3 years. So if you are thinking about what you're wanting to release and let go of, think about where you want to be in the next 3 years. What habits have maybe been holding you back to stop you from gaining those results? So I am, yeah, I'm so excited to be able to share more in this call with you all. And I'm going to hand it back to Zane and wait to be prompted again.
Well, with that, that was an excellent share there. And with that, we are going to return to those that are live here as that has wrapped up our Aries season portion, unless you have anything else that I may have missed for Aries, or just sharing your personal thoughts for Aries as you dived deeper into your own chart, and if you had thoughts of Aries season as well.
Yeah. Well, in Aries season, when we have that new moon, we're going to have this partial solar eclipse that's going to happen. And there's a couple of tidbits that I want to share about Aries season. It'll start on a 5 energy day. So for me, what I'm looking at Aries season as a whole is really going to be about us being able to claim our freedom, emotional stability, and connections to what freedom means for us. With it being this cardinal fire part, there's going to be an inner need for us to slow down, but yet to go the pace that is correct for us. So the invitation is to bring those horse blinders up, so to speak, and really get laser focused on what you want. Use the eclipse energy now to start releasing and shedding, but then also looking at what is it that you want to manifest and to create, not just for this whole next year, but in your lifetime. Like, what is it that you are here to create, cultivate? Where's your thoughts? And be able to plant seeds of connection to confidence and perseverance, being able to become more strategic. And what does that strategic look like? And what kind of reciprocity comes for it for you? Mhm. Yeah, that feels complete. I'm excited for Aries season.
Yes. And with that, we will check in with our live audience if they're excited for Aries season, or maybe that piece of it's too bold for me, maybe it's too fiery for me. That piece of, yeah, the needing to slow down and it feels too fast paced personally for me. And so with that, we will check in with those people before we move into our next section of transits here. So the next piece here that we have, I kind of was mentioning it a little bit earlier, which was the Mercury retrograde. Now, we've been in its shadow since the 24th of February, 2025. And so some of us may have been already feeling this a little bit, but it goes retrograde on the 14th of March. Now, what is Mercury retrograde? It's time when Mercury appears to be moving backwards in the sky. It often causes disruptions in communication, technology, travel, and schedules. As you could hear, it kind of disrupt me in my thought pattern there within speaking that sentence. And the advice for this is slow down, review, reflect, and avoid starting new projects, as the retrograde is that piece of return to things that you have started and tie up the loose ends. Kind of a similar theme here going on with the eclipse, that piece of returning to tie up new ends or loose ends. And so Mercury is retrograding the in Aries and Pisces. So it's going to retrograde in Aries and it'll move back into Pisces. So I'll have those themes of wanting to go fast, that piece of wanting to just take action, but then it'll transition into more of that piece of emotional piece, and that might create emotional misunderstanding and confusion. Also can bring you into more of a dream kind of space, spirituality, and creative projects. And so it's that piece of being cautious of illusions or unclear communication or possibly fuzzy boundaries, and that piece of making sure boundaries are really clear within the Mercury retrograde. And so Again, focus on rethinking on projects that you've started, things that you want to move forward on. If you haven't completely started it, or if you haven't completely started it, maybe come back to it after the retrograde or the piece of that shift of wanting to move forward and reflect on your overall spiritual journey and make sure that you are avoiding that piece of major commitments or strong contracts, as there might be those fuzzy boundaries where there may have been fine print or someone thought they said something else, and you get stuck into doing something that isn't feeling the best for you. And so the dates once again for this are happening March 14th to April 4th of 2025. There will be about 2 weeks on either side. Those will be the shadow dates there. I don't have the mark down right now. And we'll, another little mental note, we'll put that in the show notes as well. A little bit there. Is there anything else that you have to add here, Rochelle?
Yeah, you know, retrogrades can have a bad name or people will blame. So to not have to take self-responsibility with it going retrograde in the sign of the self for the collective, take some time to think about what can I take responsibility for that maybe I haven't taken responsibility for, especially with it being so close to this eclipse, like this eclipse energy and in the eclipse portal, taking time to, how am I speaking to myself? Am I uplifting myself with my thoughts? Or am I, legit cutting myself off from the head? Like, am I losing my head in the situations? And as Zane said, contracts, being able to go into agreements, those kinds of things, going into new courses, taking new programs, really make sure that you are slowing down to read the fine print. Any text messages, phone calls, voice notes, emails, any forms of communication that are just going to leave from yourself to another, even into the self, especially our children as well. How am I speaking? Am I speaking the language of the other person too? And are my words going to bring balance and justice? Or are my words going to be coming from maybe a spiteful place? With the blend of like this 9 energy year that we're in, how can I use this? And collectively, how can we use this retrograde to be able to bring more deeper endings to things that are really not been serving us as it goes over that prepositus back and it's going to entangle with Neptune a little bit? What words have I maybe spoken in the past that have been toxic? Maybe there's also what words have I used that have brought higher love, and being able to own again how you've been able to infuse your thoughts, your ways of speaking to help others elevate. There's going to be a space for you to take some time to rewire the subconscious as well, being able to communicate with that self-talk. So, taking some time, I know many of you have been connected with us and in a part of our one-on-one practice, taking the time to re-evaluate your affirmations, the practices that you have been utilizing, are they serving you? And how is your nervous system responding? Or is your nervous system reacting? Notice the difference between the two. And if you're needing some help and some discernment and on what that feels like for you, make sure to reach out. We'll put a link down below where you can connect with us. You can just send us an email because there's some big concepts about self-care when it comes to self-testing and being able to have that confidence to be able to discern. And I'm going to come into a body practice shortly within this call and within in this recording and be able to help just to clear that. So stay tuned for that.
Cool, thank you. Within that moment, that's the nice piece of having a co-host is that you can look up the dates for Mercury retrograde on the fly in behind the scenes as your co-host is keeping the attention of the audience. And so Mercury retrograde shadows are February 28th to April 26th. And so those will be those shadow dates of when Mercury will be finally out of its retrograde will be the end of April. Call it like the 28th, just to get that little bit of astrological allowance, let's say. And so with that, I think we will do our quick check-in with our live audience, see if they have any questions about Mercury retrograde here, and possibly clear up any miscommunication that we had within this section. And then we will move on to our last segment before our body tool. Our final piece here for this evening is Neptune moving into Aries. Now, this will happen at the end of March here in 2025, where it will be moving into Aries. And what is Neptune about? Neptune represents our dreams, spirituality, intuition, and it also can bring in illusion. This is the planet about the collective's unconscious. And how will this show up in Aries? Well, it will be bringing in a new shift of energy. It hasn't been in Aries for over 160 years. It's a really slow moving planet. And so Aries brings a bold sense, that piece of wanting to trailblaze, go forward. But with Neptune's energy, dreamlike energy, it can be that piece of possibly marching into a path of unknown and that piece of maybe not seeing the path completely, but yet still able to move forward with it. And so with this, it can be a call to dream big, the piece of and being inventive and redefining of what spirituality is and the personal vision outlook on day-to-day life and that sense of life in general. And so some of the other themes can be creative bursts and wanting to dive into the spiritual realm and potential for new collective dreaming and pushing boundaries of imagination and vision. But be mindful of between the sight of vision and illusion, as Aries can be prone to rush into things, as we were mentioning earlier, and without fully seeing the bigger picture. And so again, that piece of taking it slow, just like Mercury retrograde is wanting us to do, and go at our own pace, not what everybody else wants us to go at when it comes into moving into Aries season here. And so, yeah, with the Neptune moving into Aries, find those creative pieces, push forward with your passion of creativity, but keep it grounded, stay grounded, as Neptune can get us up into our head in our subconscious, our unconscious mind, and our dreams. So use this time to, once we're out of the Mercury retrograde, to utilize this energy to find new projects and ex let your imagination explore and expand in new possibilities. Is there anything here that you would like to add before you take it over for the body tool, Rochelle?
Yeah. As Zane mentioned, Neptune moves very slow, and there's going to think about what's happening in your life now, and there might be some replays of it later on into this year, and then might even filter over into 2026 because it moves slowly and it will do a retrograde later in July. Just be mindful about what is your internal dream? What is it that you're wanting to create? And how do you express the higher octaves of love? Neptune can be the spiritual part, can be the dreams, but it can also be this higher part of love and how you happen to love and express love from yeah, that more of the spiritual and etheric parts of you, more in your, maybe it's more in like the emotional parts of your body. And some might not be able to access this collective love for all. We can maybe see on the lower densities things kind of being a little bit repulsive, if you catch my drift. And so now it's really important for us to find those practices that do stimulate our conscious and our subconscious, but also help us to find the truth in being able to have that collective love for all and bringing humanity together because our thoughts can contribute to that because then it drives our actions, so becoming really connected to that. Yeah, I will jump into the body practice in just a moment. I want to talk about April and the themes of April and being able to dive into a little tidbit about April as a month within itself from beginning to end. There's really a part of us that needs some foundation. So, with this, while you're watching this, with this eclipse energy, it's like, what do I want to release and let go of and finish up in this month of March before a new month starts? So again, this is all really honoring the cycles within the cycles. So to help us with that, I've chosen a body tool on purpose that deals with the mind, that helps us to become more practical, more into accessing and getting rid of the excess energy, but then being able to activate our brain in a way that we can really settle in from this ecliptic energy into the solar eclipse energy at the end of March, and then moving into April, having a sense of new foundation with our physical body. So, with that, there is some integration that this will be able to run. Normally, it's just one meridian, but because there's so much happening in the energetics, I really want you to be able to utilize two meridians together that deal with our brain integration. And I'm going to just make sure I have the right screen pulled up. We're going to start off with the governing. I'm going to share my screen and show you a portion of it, and then Zane is going to then share his screen, and we're going to be able to help you see. Actually, or maybe Zane, because of the power of the co-host thing, are you able to combine the central and the governing? Because I know he's more of the tech guy than I am when it comes to those parts. And as he's doing that, taking a moment to reflect on the connections that you have. How has your ability to merge with others help to create a sense of reciprocity in your life, but also how have you maybe you haven't been able to merge with others and to find that sense of teamwork. Using all of the energetic brew ingredients that we've been talking about tonight, being able to incorporate it now into the physical body. And as he's helping bring this together so that you can see it side by side, start feeling into your body. Start maybe thinking about your feet, your hands, taking some deep breaths, noticing any tension that you might be experiencing, loving into it, accepting it for what it is. And then with each breath, realizing how you can breathe into that part and then exhaling and letting go of the toxicity that might be trapped in there. And it's okay. We are always ever growing and constantly in a detox because that's part of this human experience. And one of the parts with our breath is we can use it with intention. And by using it with intention, we can start to anchor into this real body ownership. And we can have these spiritual practices, and a lot of the transits that we're having right now are about the spiritual practices. But remember that we are whole beings and that there's a necessity to bring in practices that allow us to become whole beings again. It's not just about one facet and one piece, but how does that interact with what's happening in our body? And so, as my co-host lovingly gets these parts together and gets ready to share his screen, I invite you to think about where in the seat where the perineum is in your own body. This is where the governing and the central meridian does start, is right at the perineum, that part, that fleshy part between our rectum and our other parts, I'll say, because I know that sometimes there is a need for an honoring on that, and being able to think about this as the space that's the seam where our body came together, where it developed from and explored and expanded into this human shell that we call our own body. And the line comes up through the midline. And this midline is the center from the back of our body as well as the front of our body. And it stops on our upper lip and our lower lip. So if you just visualize this centered line in the middle of our body and being able to clear it, cleanse it, and being able to have our ability to show up for ourselves in a way that feels good and it feels clean. Just wanting to be able to show the meridians side by side. And one of the things hang on just a second here. What I'll do is I will just share my screen here. Hang on a second. Okay. Here is, bring this up bigger. And part of our ability to have, there we go. Perfect. I'll make this bigger. So here's the governing meridian. It's the meridian at the back of the body. It starts again at that perineum. It comes up through the spine, over the back of the head, and to the top lip. So as you're thinking about shedding and releasing with this full moon, with the transits we talked about, all through the Aries season, through most of the month of April, this is going to be one way to be able to release and get back into the physical body. And in a moment, Zane's going to show the central meridian, and that's going to be from the front of the body to the lower lip. If you're able to have one hand in the front, one hand in the back, tracing that line, you can see how I just sort of grabbed it from the front. You can also wiggle the lips back and forth with the hand on the belly button, being able to shake up that energy, releasing and letting things go. So this is the governing meridian. And then Zane, are you ready to bring up the central meridian? I think I stopped share. Perfect. Good. Excellent. And so as you can think about the energy coming up and to the bottom, to the lower lip, through that chin area, while we're tracing these meridians, you can be right within the body, touching it if that feels good and is accessible to you, or you can be hovering within 3 inches, being able to trace these lines. If you're capable of tracing them both at the same time, great. One at a time, that's good too. Here's the part about body practices and these tools. It's an invitation for you to start feeling into your own body and how your body feels given whatever you're going through and or the intention. So if you're wanting to clear for better brain function, or maybe it's bringing in that idea of being able to align yourself with the energies that are coming in and how you're being impacted by the cosmos. So let us know if you have any questions. I think we'll bring that down now, Zane. We'll somehow find a way. If you're on our email list already, we'll send both of these out so you can see them side by side. Remember, if this is a practice that you're inviting your children or friends or loved ones into, just make sure that you've asked permission and that they feel safe and feeling welcoming into being, yeah, having this done for them or being done with you and vice versa. I don't know, Zane, is there anything you want to add to the central or the governing meridian?
Nothing as of right now, no.
No. Yeah. So let us know in the comments. I know that our previous videos have all been made for kids and you haven't been able to comment. We have now picked up on that. So thank you for the emails and the messages that came through, those that are wanting to interact with our material. We appreciate you being here. Those with our live audience, we appreciate you being here too. If you want to be a part of our live audience, we'll make sure that you have access to our Eventbrite link where you can access the following months to come, being able to help yourself live within the brew of your chart, but also within the transits so that you don't feel like you're being stirred with it. And with that, I thank you so much also to my co-host for being here and being a part of this team and helping us to grow and to be activated by our charts in a good way that feels healing and nourishing. And with that, I'll hand it over to you to close this off.
Thank you for the body tool here tonight. And yeah, with that is the our month our March monthly gathering here coming to a close for the recording as we will step into the live audience here once again and check in with them before we say goodnight to them. And with that, thank you for showing up. Know that it's okay to go slow and to take your time when it comes to Aries season, that you don't need to rush and go cheetah speed on it. So, with that, I've been Zane, co host here with Rochelle here at the Energetic Brew. And if you're curious about more, always reach out. And with that, we'll see you next time.